Hey, welcome back, everybody. Of course, you know me. My name is Dr. Keith McNally. This is the Question Guy podcast. Please give me a round of applause. We are in season 4, and I am here with Cathy Derksen, and we're going to get a bit deep here. So, anybody in the audience who has a propensity for crying, it is okay. We're going to share emotion today, and actually, all of season 4 is about getting deep and sharing emotions. Cathy was living a very toxic life, but probably not because she wanted to, but because the circumstances around her really just closed in. And so we're going to get deep into this. Cathy, this is your story. Where do you want to get started?
Well, thank you very much for having me. I always love to add to the conversation, so this should be fun. And, and yeah, I think the best place to really start it was when I really started realizing that I was not living the life that I had planned on living, and that I was really deep into toxic mud, really, when you think about it. And it was actually, my family was involved in a fatal car accident that, luckily, knock on wood, my family was physically fine. One of the other drivers involved was not. And I'm sure you can imagine a lot of trauma still
Right.
today. And that was almost 15 years ago now. And anyways, I think it really became a wake up call for me. It really snapped me into noticing that I was living in a life where my marriage was very toxic. I was working in a field. I loved the field. I used to work in medical genetics and I loved that field, but I was in a work environment that was also very toxic and belittling and minimizing and just suffocating. And I had two teenagers at the time who, we'd had our usual teenage struggles, but I hadn't really put it into perspective. And it really, I think, was that accident that really just snapped it into place for me and had me really see that, life is too short
Mm.
for staying stuck in stuff that's just not okay. And part of that too was then I realized the role model I was being. So here I am living my life in a way that I'm not happy. I'm in an abusive marriage and thinking, well, is this what I want to show my kids? That this is what you have to look forward to in life, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think all those things coming together in that really time of trauma, I think was really what got that ball rolling. And I realized that no, huge things had to change in my life. And it was up to me to get myself out of it and to get my kids out of it too.
So it sounds like you felt trapped in many different types of situations. Now, sometimes we apply for a job and we think we're going into a great situation and it doesn't turn out to be that way. I know I experienced that myself a couple of years back and was lucky enough to get out of that. But your whole life seemed to be like this big ball of god awful nose, and it one way or another it was going to explode.
Explode is probably a good word to use. Yes.
So can you talk
Explode or
about,
implode.
yeah, can you talk about how that car accident really kind of exploded the situation and the things that you were thinking about that needed to do that you need to do differently?
I think it was in witnessing how my kids each dealt with the trauma of the event and how it really amplified what they had already been going through, again in response to the toxic family life we were in. And I think those were some of the key things that, witnessing that, seeing, how can I be helping as a parent, and then realizing how many other factors were getting stirred into how they were reacting and responding and what they were going through. And so I think that was a big part of it. And just sort of really realizing, okay, what do I need to change? And that's when I started doing more things. I can't even remember exactly how I got on this path, but I started going to breathwork programs and other kind of mindfulness things that I'd never done before. And I think part of it was my son ended up getting himself into quite a bit of trouble at that time. And again, from a combination of all these things going on in his life. And we went to a local folk festival, a folk music festival, and we just happened to bump into this one group. They had the little booths all set up, and there was a group there that had a camp for teens to kind of give them different experiences, show them different ways. It's a very different kind of thing. This was the first year they were doing it. And I just knew that this is what he needed. And I learned later it was what I needed too. So
How did
I
you,
actually give that group credit for changing a lot of parts of our life.
so it sounds like when you are intentional about knowing that change needs to take place, some things in your life started to line up. And so, one, this group and your son goes to camp or whatever that looked like, you too were making changes. And so, talk to us about, you said deep breathing or some type of meditative.
There was a few different groups that I was going to at the time, and they had different styles of. It's almost like you're going into a hyperventilating behavior
uh,
that really shifts how your brain is perceiving things. So it's almost like a hypnosis, but through just your own breathing and in different patterns, different rhythms, different sequences, and of course having different music around and kind of guided in some cases. And it was actually an amazing. I like I said, I'd never been exposed to it before, and as part of that experience, I just tried it, and it was amazing how it worked. And then, too, as my son went to that program and got to know these different people doing different things, coming from different places, and it really opened his eyes up, I think, to just different, that life isn't just that little box he'd been living in, that there was so much more possibility. And one of the counselors that he had met at that event, I approached her afterwards and feeling like, as parents, that's when we were still together, I thought, well, let's go to her and see if she can help us to help him.
Okay.
But one of the things that she said that hit me just like a lightning bolt, she basically told us that he is a reflection of us.
Mm.
So it's not about helping him, it's about fixing us. And that we needed to do the work and that was going to help him. And it hit me just straight on, and I just got it and saw exactly what she was saying.
But you
Whereas on the
said,
other hand, my
you,
ex-husband did not get it and felt she was all wrong. And that was one of the last kind of counseling things we went to.
okay, I was going to ask you because you said earlier that the relationship was abusive. And so to say that he would need to do some fixing, maybe not.
Well, not wanting to badmouth other people, but narcissist is definitely a word I would use to describe him. And so everything was always everybody else's fault. He had nothing to do with anything that was wrong. There was nothing that he needed to change. The rest of the family all had stuff that we needed to change. And to this day, now it's been, how long's it been? 13 years.
There,
And he still blames the kids for their behavior as kids. So yeah, it's a, I don't even like to go there anymore,
okay.
but yes, definitely his unless we're all willing to take our responsibility for our part of it,
Hmm.
it's really hard to make any kind of changes when not everybody is getting on board, that there needs to be changes from everybody. So that definitely was one of the turning points. And again, looking at that, what role model am I being to my kids if I'm staying stuck in this clearly dead end situation where nothing's going to really get fixed in the relationship, that I needed to get out of the relationship and get us all away from that situation so we could start over.
By the words that you're using, it's really clear and evident that you took an introspective look at yourself and the things that were going on with you, around you, family, work, your partnership with your husband, life in general, when you started to see that there were problems and then started to make intentional changes, things started to actually started to happen. Your son's
Yes.
making some changes. The therapist says, you need to do something differently because this is what you're demonstrating, this is what you're modeling to your children. You needed to make a serious decision, I'm thinking, about leaving a marriage. Yes?
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
assuming that you did?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Very soon after that. And and like you're saying too, part of it was I really started to trust my intuition and really started to trust just that gut feeling of what was the right direction, what was right, what was wrong, what was, you know, it was actually amazing when I really started to learn and listen how much guidance I got through my intuition and just what direction to go in. I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of learning and bumps and turns and things along the way, but from where I was then to where I am now, if I hadn't learned to listen to my intuition and trust myself to, even if I didn't know what the next step was, just to trust, okay, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, sometimes the hardest thing we learn is trust the process, but in the same time, it's being comfortable with who we are now. And it sounds like you're becoming more comfortable with, if not who you are or who you were, but something that you wanted to become, because we do make changes not haphazardly. I mean, through chaos and toxicity, you have to be clear on what it is that you wanted to become. When did you become clear on what you wanted to change into?
Yeah, it's hard to know exactly where that started because before that in life, I had kind of gone through, like a lot of us do in our younger years, we just followed that path of go to school, you go to university, you get a job, you get married, you buy a house, you have kids, following that.
And you
And
did it
like
all.
I did all those things, yes, yes, and the dog too. Don't forget the dog, all those things, and at the so originally I was in a career that I loved. Like I said, I loved the field of biology and genetics, but the work itself, the workplace,
Right,
became very toxic. But I
right,
hadn't really spent a lot of time thinking about like what is my gifts, what is my calling, what am I bringing, kind of thing. And it really wasn't until I was in the middle of this other stuff. And I describe it like I threw my life up in the air and reinvented it on the way back down. You leave the whole career behind, you leave the marriage behind, you sell the house, you're now out in the world as a single mom with two teenagers that are doing their own battles with life.
yeah,
And it really was like just putting pieces of a puzzle back together in a different way.
yeah,
And that's, I think, when I really started thinking more about what is it that I'm here to do. Like again, that intuition of what's my calling, I guess you'd say. And at that point I really started realizing that I needed more people to people contacts. With my old job, I worked mainly in hospital labs. So there, you don't see a lot of people besides the ones that you're working with every single day. And I knew that I needed to be with people, helping people more directly. And it came to me that helping women was a huge part of where my heart was. And I think part of that was because I was in the middle of my own struggles and feeling like, who can help me? What help is there for me?
yeah,
And thinking, okay, there's so many of my friends that are also in this situation. And at that time, it struck me, well, money is a place that a lot of women struggle. So I went into financial planning at that point. So again, left a 25-year career in medical genetics behind, closed the door, done. Stepped into a whole new career in the middle of all this chaos with the kids in the house. Went into financial planning, did the whole CFP, all in investment companies, banking. And again, my focus was to help women change their life, like have a true impact.
right. Right.
But after 10 years of working in that kind of very controlled corporate world, realized I just wasn't having the impact. I was helping people, I was teaching people, I was guiding them, but I wasn't having a real impact that felt that I was doing what I came here for.
Okay. So you're still finding
And
yourself.
I think that was part of it, that I was really kind of fine tuning. Okay, am I in the right place? Is this what I'm here for? And so that's when I made the next big change and left that corporate job behind and went into my own business, where I felt that, okay, I can decide what I provide, how I bring it, fine tune it around what are people asking? What are people, what's, are they drawing out of me? I guess is a way to look at it.
Well, can we ask that question? What what are people drawing out of you? What are people pulling from you that you are actually giving them free? How are you
What
helping
I
people?
realized, and again, coming, going through a lot of this and that and trying this and trying that. And originally I was going with kind of a coaching model. But I really discovered that where my gifts are is in connecting, bringing people together and providing them with a platform. So, again, when I first went into being an entrepreneur, I had this idea that I had to be flashy and all this, bells and whistles and stuff. But luckily I came to realize that that's not me. That's not how I do things. I'm a quiet leader. I lead quietly by your side, not out in front with the trombone going.
And that's okay.
So, well, exactly. And that's one of the things I came to realize, that there's not about being flashy and having all the things going on. It's about figuring out how I do this and what I'm bringing. And so, and that's one of the things that brought me to where I am now with books. And so the biggest thing that I'm working on right now is I create collaborative book projects, mainly for women, with themes that appeal to women. Obviously, men could come into these projects as well if they wanted to. But again, my heart has always been with helping other women change their life.
Mhm.
And so I found that by providing this platform and these opportunities for women to step into becoming an author, sharing their story, building their community, all through these books, that it really feels like I've come home. Like this is what feels right, that I feel like I am providing the service that they're calling me to bring. I'm providing something that truly is having an impact on people's lives, and not just providing a bit of information here and there, but truly changing people's lives, which makes me realize, wow, I'm really, I'm doing what I came here for.
So, what type of books or book projects do you facilitate?
Well, so far this year, I've released 3 books. And so the first one was called Embrace Courage. So that one had 20 people. There was a few men in that one. And, again, sharing real life, everyday stories of how they'd had to be courageous in their life,
Oh,
and looking at inspiring the reader to really see that, for one thing, to give themselves credit for how courageous they are in life, because life requires courage.
yes.
And to really, just inspire the reader to just keep going, keep being courageous. And the book I had released in June, that one was called Midlife Awakening. So it was
All
20
female?
women. Hmm?
All female
that
authors?
that was all women. And
Okay.
yes, so all talking about hitting a time in life when, kind of like myself, we just realized that the life I'm living is not who I am or what I'm here for.
Mm.
And so those challenges of realizing that, getting out of that, what are we doing now? One of the books that I'm working on right now is called Ripple Effect of Impact.
Well, that sounds
And
interesting.
yes, and I find that it's getting a lot of attention, because for so many of us that are doing our own business, that's our goal, is to create an impact. but then also that ripple effect impact is like, to me, is the ultimate goal, that I am impacting this person, but now what is that? How is that impacting going forward? I was speaking with one of my authors this morning. She was in foster care as a child. She then was luckily shifted into a very successful adult life and career. And now she's helping other kids that are in foster care right now, and especially the ones aging out.
Mhm.
And I was talking to her about this whole thing of the ripple effect of what she's doing. And you think about it, she's helping kids that are in foster care, stepping out into some other world. She's not just impacting that kid, she's impacting that kid, their family, their community, their kids, their grandkids, their great grandkids, like the ripple effect of generations that she can change.
Mhm.
Like, to me, that's where the sweet stuff is.
And that's actually very beautiful. And I have stories with people, although they've never talked about it in that perspective, you really have to think and listen to what they're saying, listen very carefully to recognize that it's not just them that changed,
Yep.
their family, maybe church, people that they know directly, people that they know indirectly. So that's a I love that. That's you should do more books like that.
I know.
So how many people are authoring the Ripple Effect book? How many people are right
We'll
now?
have 20 to 25 people by the time we're all ready. We've
Okay.
still got some spots open, so give me a call.
Okay. And so what I'll do is I'll make sure that this airs within the next week or so that
Mm,
whoever watches, listens, can contact you directly if they want to be a part of that. That would be great.
mm,
And I think I know some people, some women specifically, who may want to be a part of that. So I can connect you on LinkedIn as well. Going back to your
over.
personal story, do you now feel that everything about your life is in alignment? Who you are, your purpose, your values, your mission?
I
Are
think
you in that space?
I think everything in my life has become clearer,
Okay.
and I've definitely moved a lot of things in the right direction. I definitely would not say everything about my life, but
But you're in a
there,
good space now.
I, I'm I'm in a space where I know I'm going in the right direction.
Okay.
And I think, like so many of us that go into our own business and just create life from scratch, that there's the learnings around running a business, there's the learnings around, okay, how do I make this business fund itself, how do I, so the adventure of learning how to run a business while following my calling.
Mhm.
That's where the journey continues.
So with that in mind, what do you think? Because you went from one, a second, this is like your third real like career effort.
Career. Yeah, yeah.
Is there another stage out there that you're kind of thinking about, or
Well,
what
down
does
the
your
road, what
future
I
hold?
would love to step into is doing more speaking engagements. And a big part of kind of the overall work that I'm doing, the books, like I said, is the main part of how I'm doing it right now. But the big vision is around supporting women to really step into possibilities in the life that they really want. And especially midlife women, I find so many of us are stuck with those feelings of too old to start something new, or what would my friends think, or just sort of stuck. And so that's a huge part of my focus, is really helping that group of women step into a whole new way of doing life. And so part of my vision is to start doing more speaking engagements, which would include traveling the world and actually meeting some of these authors in my books, because my authors are from all over the world. Today, or this week, I've spoken with a woman in Brazil, one in Austria, UK, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand. So they're everywhere now. And so I'd love to be able to travel and actually meet these people
That'd be
and do
really
speaking
cool.
events. So
Yeah, that'd be really
that's kind of
cool.
where I see the big vision going.
Well, with the time that we have left, and now that I know what your specific focus is, if you were to meet A woman in midlife, mid-career, desperately trying to figure things out, thinks she's got the right track going, but there's something inside of her that says there's got to be more. Something's missing. Give that woman who's listening today that next step.
Well, I'll give you one of the quotes that really has become a steering point that I reflect on regularly. It's Howard Thurman. It's the original, where the quote comes from. And he said, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive
Hmm.
and go do that. Because what the world needs is more people who have come alive." And to me, that just sums it all up, that our responsibility, I would say, is to make ourselves come alive so that we can then, again, give others permission to come alive as well. And I mean, our world right now is kind of a bit of a negative soup. And I believe that the more we bring positive energy into it and share it and lift each other, that hopefully we can turn that tide soon.
Cathy, I like that so much. That's a perfect ending to this conversation is to figure out how to come alive and then extend that ripple effect to the next person. Thank you for this conversation. This has been another edition of the Question Guy podcast. For those of you who are watching and listening, I'll see you next time. Take care.